we're going to look at something called as NPM. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. npmjs.com is a site where you can find all Node packages. This is one of the biggest package manager out there to do package management. You can see here the way of installing Node packages is pretty simple. All you need to do is run an npm command, which we'll take a look at it quickly. You can bookmark this site called as npmjs.com. We're going to look at a package, color, no, not color, it's for printing colors in your console. Just a second, npm module to print colors. It's called as, oh god. Okay, for now probably I'll take up another module for working with it. So let's say we're going to use Chalk. I'm sorry, it's called as Chalk. The module I was looking for is called as Chalk. So this is for basically writing messages in your terminal in a more colorful fashion. Since Node.js is heavily inspired by colors, so heavily command line driven, so we would like to present information in a more interactive fashion like this. So for the next example, we're going to install a module called as Chalk, which is basically consisting of all the colors that you need to write messages in your console. So for Windows users, there are some colors which do not work, that you can check it out. I am not sure how many of them work perfectly in a Windows machine. If you use Git Bash, all the colors will work, whereas when it comes to your terminal command prompt, it might not work. So this is mostly, this module heavily works with Windows machines, and Linux operating system, this should also be working pretty fine. So coming back to our examples folder, I'm going to create another folder for session 1 called as example3. In the example3 folder, we are going to create or add node modules which are from the NPM repository to our application. The first thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to open a terminal here inside the example3 folder. So for the people who are coming from Java background, you must have used tools like Maven, which takes care of your dependency management for your application. So the same way in a Node.js, the way you start a Node application is by using a file called as a package.json. So we are going to start this new file. We're going to start a new project in Node.js using the syntax npm init. When you run this command, npm, sorry to get back a bit, npm is the command which gets installed when you install Node.js. So when you run npm init, it actually asks you a set of questions about setting up the package.json file. So I will just show you how to scaffold the package.json file using npm init, and then I'm going to walk you through the features of it. First thing when you run npm init is that it asks you what is the name of your project. The name of our project is example3. Then it asks what is the version of your project. As we discussed earlier, Node uses SymWord format of versioning your packages. So 0. The first is the major, second is the minor, third is the patch. Since we are still working with a basic application, I'm going to call it 0.1.0. The description of the application, I'm going to call this as a npm module example. What is the entry point of the application? Node.js or npm provides something called as scripts, which we're going to deal a bit later or probably tomorrow when we are talking about the package.json in detail. In the script section, what we do is that we try to invoke the starting point of the application. So here, as you can see in previous examples, in example1 folder and example2 folder, all my starting files are named as index.js. This is more of a convention, the same way how we do in web development, as in like index.html or index.jsp. Now I'm going to leave my entry point as index.js. If you do not want to make any change to the selection, you can directly hit enter. So you can also provide a test command. As I mentioned earlier, Node.js runs scripts which you can use to run things. So for now, I'm not going to enter any test commands, so I'm going to hit the return key. You can provide a GitHub repository where your project is stored. Since we don't have any GitHub repository, I'm going to hit the return key. You can associate a bunch of keywords which you can use to tag this application. So if you're pushing this particular repository to the NPM package manager's repository, that is npmjs.com, you can provide a list of tags keywords which you can mention so that people can search your application easily, like this. We are not going to provide any keywords, or you can provide a keyword like example and then say node module. Who is the author of the application? So I'm going to provide my name. What is the type of the license of this application? I'm going to provide an MIT license. And then it asks you the question, this is the package.json I'm going to generate. Are you okay with it? So it says name example3, version 0.1.0. The description is NPM module example. Main is index.js. We have a script called as test, which says no test specified, and it exists. And then we have a keyword called as example, node, and module, the author, and license. If you're okay with it, you can hit the return key. If you don't want it, you can hit no. I'm going to hit the return key, and it says the file is generated. If you go back to your project folder, the example3, you should see a file called as package.json created. This is the JSON file which consists of all the information which we had right now. Now, if you want to install any external modules of a Node application, you can go to npmjs.com and search for that particular package or a module, and then you can get it. So for instance, you can go to npmjs.com, and this time I know the name of the package, which is called as chalk. I hit the return key. You get a list of matching packages for this particular query. Click on chalk, and then you get the version. Here, generally you will have a command on how to install it. It says npm install ---- save chalk. Let's take a step back on understanding the npm command line tools. One command which we have already seen is called as npm init. As you already know, this npm command is used for initializing a new Node project with package.json. The next command is to install a new Node package. You can run npm install chalk. So this is how you install a new Node package. When you run npm install chalk and hit the return key, it is going to go download and then fetch the npm module called as chalk. If you go back to the example3 folder, you see that a new folder named Node_modules is created, and inside that the chalk folder is downloaded. So this particular file consists of the functionality of chalk. If you open the package.json, nothing much has changed here after we install the package. So the idea of package.json is that this is like the project definition file. Since anybody in your team is going to use the same project file which you are using, you did not send across the common Node modules which you are using across your application to your teammate with every code check-in. It is a waste of space. Instead, what we do is that we mention those information inside the package.json file, mentioning that, okay, this is my project called as example3, and these are all the dependencies for my project. So the way you add a dependency, like for example, we are using chalk in our application. The way you mention the dependency in your package.json is by adding another property called as dependencies. And then you mention the dependency here. Another easy way to do the same is when you install chalk, you can add a flag called as --save. When you run --save and hit return, the package gets downloaded. At the same time, it gets added to your package.json under a section called as dependencies automatically. So from now on, whenever you're checking your file into your Git or your Subversion, you can ignore the Node_modules folder and ship the Node.js file, this package.json file. And when your teammate receives this package.json file, all he needs to do is run npm install. So let me go ahead and delete the Node_Modules folder, and let us assume that I am the teammate who has received the project file, which is basically package.json as of now, and then I know that I need this particular dependency to be installed on my machine. I go to the terminal, I'm pressing Ctrl L on my machine to clear the window, and then I run npm install without any name of the package. When the npm install command runs without the name of the package, it searches for a package.json file in the current folder and installs all the dependencies. So let us say npm install, and I hit the return key. Now what happens? It downloads the package.json. It downloads the dependencies from the package.json file. So this is one easy way to manage dependencies across projects, where you need not ship the code with ship the dependency code with the source code. So moving on, what we are going to do is we're going to install another way of doing things. So there are two sections in a package.json called as dependencies and dev dependencies. There are so many modules out there in Node.js that which you're going to use for developing your core application, and some modules which you're going to use for managing those applications. For example, a build tool, like you use Ant in your Java application for building. Similarly, in Node.js, we have a tooling system using Grunt or Gull to manage the project for you. There are two types of dependencies, as I was talking about. One is called as dependencies and one is called as development dependencies. A module like Chalk, where you would like to print messages in your application in a colorful format, is part of your application's code. For example, you would like to use another module for processing or minifying your file. That is a module which will be used for developing dependencies. That will not be shipped with the product, but that will be used for managing your product. So let us assume that we're going to use a module called as, let me Google it, let me search in the packages, called as minify. As you can see, there are so many modules out there which run the minification process of minifying CSS, JS, HTML, and images. So I'm going to use this package called as minify. We are not going to implement the package in our application, but this is to show that there are two types of packages that you will be needing when working with your application. One that are used as part of your core application logic, and one that will take care of managing your application for you. Minifying is a build script that will take care of managing the application for you. So this will convert a particular file into a minified file. We are not going to implement, as I mentioned earlier. The only thing we are going to do is that we are going to add this as a dependency to our project. So when you add this particular module, which is called as minify, the way you do that is that you say npm install minify --save -dev. The only difference between the first way of installation and the second way of installation is that you add another postfix to your --save called as dev, which tells npm or the package manager to take this as a development dependency and not to push this in case you're running a production environment. We'll talk more about managing production environments a bit later on. If I go back to my package.json, you see that this particular minify is available as a dev dependency, whereas the chalk is added as a dependency. But both of them are downloaded inside the main folder, as you can see here. This is how you generally install a package which is available in NPM. If you would like to uninstall, all you need to do is npm uninstall and the package name. If you run npm uninstall and the package name and hit the return key, it will be removed from the Node Modules folder, but it will not be removed from your package.json. If you want it to be removed from your package.json as well, add the --save -dev flag, which will take care of uninstalling and removing it from your dev dependencies or the dependencies as well. The same thing goes for the normal dependencies as well. npm install chalk --save, and then this would uninstall the Node module as well as remove it from the dependencies. These modules, whatever you see when you run npm install chalk, this module get installed locally, as in like this. Now I'm going to create a file inside my example3 called as index.js file, and then I'm going to require the chalk package, where chalk equal to require chalk. Right? Now, I would like to print a few statements in different colors. So I would like to go back to the documentation and refer. You can go back to NPM, search for the package, click on the package, and then you generally have the documentation available with it. You can also read other information about these packages, as in like highly performant, doesn't extend string.prototype, expressive API, ability to nest styles, and so on. It is used by more than 3,000 modules to print colorful values. So you can see on the right hand side what this module depends on. It depends on support-color, has ANSI, escape string regex, and strip ANSI and ANSI styles are used for building this project, whereas this module is used in all these packages. The way you can use it is as you can see from here. Var chalk equal to require chalk. You can style a string like chalk.blue equal to hello world. So this is as good as writing console.log hello world but print it in blue color. Now going back to the terminal, I'm going to clear the terminal and then run node index.js. I need to wrap this in console.log. As you can see, this prints in blue color. So this typically converts your string into a color that is understood by your terminal. So for example, you can pass in multiple arguments to this, or you can also have a foreground color and a background color. So I'm going to take this and do another console log. Now you can see this print in blue color with a background as red. So this module, what you're looking at, and this API is specific to this module. The only thing which you are going to take away from this example is how to use a module which is available in NPM, how to download it, and how to set it up inside our project, and how to consume it. Most of the times the README files are very well documented for us to keep using it. I'm going to do another example which talks about theming files for this module. So you say var error equal to chalk.bold.red. So it is creating another variable called as error, which takes in the value of chalk.bold.red. So now when I say console.log, and then I can write error, then now I go and run this, you can see this is now in red color. So this is as good as replacing like this. The output is still going to remain the same, but you're going to see some colors flowing in with the chalk library. So typically this is how you do this. You can also have other API methods which is available in this library to use it. So to identify a list of styles that is supported, you can find here. Anything issues, so here, if you are on Windows, do yourself a favor, use cmdr instead of cmd.exe. So if you want to print colors, guild batch works most of the time for all the colors. There's an issue with 256-bit colors. Chalk does not support anything other than base 8 colors. So you can read more about the documentation of each module which is available here. You can also, on the right hand side, see the link to its location on GitHub. When you click on the link on the GitHub, it takes you to the GitHub page where you can see how this module is coded. I'm a curious guy. If something like this is implemented, I would like to go about checking where it is written, how it is written, what does it do. If you are evaluating a module and you want to see how popular it is, you can check out the stars, the forks. You can click on the issues, and then you can see how many issues are there which is open, and then how many are closed. You can use the GitHub search filter to see whether if it works or not. So let us say that you are a Windows guy and looking at Windows issues with Windows. I'll say is:issue and then Windows, hit enter. So it says chalk.gray dim not available. So here you can see what happens. You can go through the issues, talk to the guy who has written, and then so on. This is one way of looking at applications or following the applications on GitHub and see where it works. So this is one way of installing Node modules on the machine, as you can see here. The basic thing is that we spoke about the 5 modules which Chalk is dependent on. And you can see from here, the Chalk module, which is present inside the Node modules, has another Node modules folder which consists of the 5 dependencies. And when you open any of the dependencies, if they further have any dependencies, those will also be listed or downloaded when you do this till you reach to a package which does not have any further dependencies to be loaded. This causes a big concern for people running Windows. There are some modules which are so deeply nested that this go beyond 60 or 70 folders deep, and when you're trying to delete the Node modules folder, it does not happen that easily because Windows can delete only up to 40 folders. So typically this architecture of packages is something close to Linux than of Windows. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. It is actually not an acronym. NPM is not a Node.js specific tool anymore. NPM is basically a registry of reusable modules and packages written by various developers. You can publish your own modules, as I just mentioned. There are 2 ways to install NPM packages. One locally that we use and depend on the package from your own module or project. 2 globally to be used across the system. It's more like a command line tool. We're going to work with it later. Installing a package locally is as simple as running npm install and the package name. This will create a Node modules directory and will download the package there. And once it is installed, you can use require syntax to actually get it. Another way of saving packages locally, as we have seen, is using the package.json file. Once you have a package.json file in your directory, you can run npm install. All the package names listed in there will be downloaded. So the same thing which I told you. The local here, what I mean is on your machine, on the server where it is running. On the machine where Node.js is running, that is referred to as local. The npm install --save will add the package to package.json as we have seen. So you can also manually enter the package.name using the dependencies object literal notation that we have seen earlier. When you create a package.json, only 2 things are important. One, the name, and the second is a version. The npm init process generates other properties also. And you can also add your own set of properties to package.json to give more definition and meaning to that file if you require. So there is a way you can install console. There are 2 options here, but I prefer using the git bash for doing things more efficiently. So the process of installing a global module is running npm install -g and the package name. In case you're installing it in a folder or a global folder where you do not have permissions, on a Linux, Unix, or a Mac system, you need to use the sudo command. And Windows user needs to run this as run as and launch their command prompt and then use it.